Good evening, everyone. My name is Rhiannon Baylord, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at UC Law San Francisco. And we are honored that the San Francisco Democratic Party is hosting tonight's mayoral debate at our academic village.
Yes.
UC Law has been a part of the fabric of San Francisco since our founding in 1878. We are an anchor institution within the Tenderloin, and with the inception of our academic village, we have brought together multiple institutions of higher education to share this campus that we're all sitting in here today. We've tripled our housing capacity, invested in the Tenderloin, and increased activation, and we have additional housing coming down the pipe. We work closely with our neighbors, community partners, and the city to ensure the safety and well-being of our campus, the Tenderloin, and the greater San Francisco city and county. And with that, I am very pleased to welcome you on behalf of UC Law San Francisco to our academic village. And I will now invite our Vice Chair for the San Francisco Democratic Party and Chair of the Mayoral Debate Committee, Dan Calamucci, to the stage.
All right, good evening, San Francisco. Welcome. My name is Dan Calamucci, Vice Chair of San Francisco Democratic Party, and it's my honor to be the first to welcome you to our mayoral debate for 2024. But also first, some thank yous are in order, of course. And so a tremendous thanks first to the University of California Law, San Francisco, for this amazing facility. And real special kudos to the staff, the hardworking staff here have done an amazing job. They've been wonderful, wonderful partners, and we couldn't do it without them. Also want to thank our media partners, San Francisco's own KRON 4, going to be live streaming, as well as having our moderator. So a special shout out to the folks, many of you saw, they've been on their feet for the last 2 hours. There are volunteers from our Democratic clubs across the city, so big kudos to our volunteers. A big thank you to our co-hosting Democratic clubs, the clubs who are out there doing the work every day to build San Francisco's Democratic Party. And I'm just going to read them in alphabetical order just to give it up. Alice B. Toklas LGBTQ Democratic Club, the Bernal Heights Democratic Club, District 3 Democratic Club, Harvey Milk LGBTQ Democratic Club, Home Sharers Democratic Club, Noe Valley Democratic Club, Jewish Democratic Club, Richmond District Democratic Club, San Francisco Eastern Neighborhoods Democratic Club, San Francisco Working Families Democratic Club, San Francisco Young Democrats, United Democratic Club, and the West Side Family Democratic Club. And of course, a final thank you to the members of the debate committee who helped put this on in a pretty short timeline. So let me recognize and honor the folks who are here. We got Peter Galata, who's a member of our Democratic County Central Committee. We have Vice Chair Cedric Akbar, and I know she's watching at home, Internal Operations Director Lanier Coles. And finally, I want to give the biggest thanks to the woman who makes all of this happen for us. She is the chair of the San Francisco Democratic Party. She is the incomparable Nancy Tone.
I was looking around the room to see who Dan Calamucci was talking about. But San Francisco, welcome to the San Francisco Democratic Party's mayoral debate for 2024. We are so excited to have this and the candidates, the 5 major candidates here tonight with us. I do want to thank you for your civic interest and taking the time to not only attend and watch this debate, but also to engage with other people, with our clubs and our political community to get a better understanding of the issues of the day. One thing that you might think about is, who is your favorite candidate? And you may have a favorite tonight, but I want to remind everyone out there that this is an election, a race with ranked choice voting. And so do this right now. Write down, of these 5 candidates, how would you order them today? And then as the political season progresses towards November, see how that changes and see how the candidates either do or don't align with the values that you have. I think this is a really interesting exercise to do, particularly because when you get your ballot, you will have the opportunity to rank. And as Democrats, we want to make sure that every vote is counted. After the debate, I will be hosting a reception at Chow Pascal, which is just a block to the right. It is hosted in small bites, and then the bar is open as well, but you'll have to pay for your own drinks. But this is an opportunity for everyone to come and chit chat. The candidates have been invited to attend as well. But I think it's a really important thing, not only to show our support of local businesses, but also to engage with each other after something like this. So with no further ado, I would like to introduce our moderator for tonight, Teresa Estacio. Thank you for being our moderator, and thank you to KRON for being our media partner in this. Teresa is a familiar face to us in the Bay Area. She has been a reporter and anchor for KRON 4 for the last 20+ years. She has a keen political acumen, having covered the Bush, Gore, and Obama presidential campaigns, and from being a former White House correspondent. These days, Teresa is focusing on digging deep into investigative reporting, special projects, and noteworthy court cases. We are so lucky to have her 40 years of journalism experience on stage tonight to be our moderator. Please give a warm welcome to Teresa Estacio.
Hello, how is everyone?
First.
I want to thank everyone for being here and for everyone for coming, as well as streaming for those at home. We are going to be hearing from the 5 candidates running for mayor. Now, the debate organizing committee wants to remind everyone of the ground rules. We want the evening to have success, and we want it to be informative. Please leave signs and other materials outside of the auditorium. They will interfere with the live stream. Campaign shirts as well as buttons are allowed. Keep your applause contained to when we introduce the candidates, and when the debate concludes, we want to hear from all of the candidates as much as possible. Now, let's have the candidates come out here and join us.
Always sit next to each other.
I love that.
Okay, let's we're going to hear a lot from them, so let's take our seats. We're going to go over some of the formatting issues for the evening. There are going to be 4 sections to this debate. Candidates are going to have their opening remarks, and then there are going to be questions posed by myself for the evening. A note about the questions so that everyone is clear. These are sourced from the 5 campaigns, chartered Democratic clubs, and narrowed down by the organizing committee. Then there's going to be a candidate-to-candidate question, and then there'll be closing remarks. Each candidate is going to have 90 seconds to answer the question posed by myself, rotating through each candidate. Automatic rebuttals are allowed if a candidate is directly named or alluded to. Rebuttals are 30 seconds, and that means that rebuttals do not stack. If someone is named by 3 different candidates, they get 30 seconds to respond, not 90. The timekeeper, right here in front, Michael, we'll have 30-second warnings, and then we'll move on for the sake of getting to more questions, because that's what this is all about, right? I'll pause the debate if we have interruptions. Fingers crossed, we're not going to go there. Let's stay on track. So let's begin. We drew names and numbers, and Mr. Farrell will be going first.
Good to go?
Good to go.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm proud to be a born and raised San Franciscan. I'm proud that my wife Liz and I are raising our 3 children here in San Francisco. Oh. Can you guys hear now?
Well, let's make sure that's louder. Try it now.
Can you guys hear me now? All right. Can I get a restart?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you. So again, I am a proud, born and raised San Franciscan. And I'm proud that my wife Liz and I are raising our 3 children here in San Francisco. Our youngest, Kane, who is in the audience today. And I'm proud to be a born and raised San Francisco Democrat. I grew up here in San Francisco as an only child of 2 strong members of our Democratic Party here in San Francisco. My father is also with us here today. Hey, Pops. And both of my parents were heads of their labor unions at different times in their careers. It's how I grew up. And I've been a strong member and supporter of our Democratic Party my entire life. My first job out of college was working for Clinton Gore in 1996 presidential campaign. I led our law school protests against the Bush v. Gore Supreme Court decision in 2000. And I ran and won a seat on this body for the Democratic County Central Committee of San Francisco in 2016. I've been a member of our Democratic Party in San Francisco my entire life, and I am proud of it. I'm running for mayor to bring back City Hall, to bring back San Francisco, and to restore San Francisco to the most iconic city in the world. Thank you.
Mr. Safaí.
Thank you. Again, my name is Ahsha Safaí, and let me start by saying I'm a proud immigrant that came to this country when I was 6 years old, fleeing violence and upheaval. I was raised by a single mom. I think she's in the crowd somewhere. And I'm a proud father and husband. I've dedicated myself to fighting for working people every step of the way. And I want you to ask your question tonight to yourself. Who on this stage is going to fight for all San Franciscans? Not just the billionaires or the billionaire heirs, but all working families, right? And so let me just say this. I put myself through college, went to MIT for city planning. I've worked for 2 mayors, and I've dedicated 24 years of public service to this city, fighting for working people every step of the way. And I have a track record of bringing people together, business and labor in particular. So that's my promise to you this evening. I'm going to fight for all San Franciscans. Thank you.
Mr. Lurie.
I'm running because San Francisco needs accountable leadership and new ideas. The City Hall insiders that got us into this mess won't get us out. We know this not because of what you'll hear them say tonight, but because of their records. I founded and ran one of the largest anti-poverty fighting organizations in this country without a cent of government money. I'm the only one on stage that's held nonprofits accountable in the areas of housing, education, and employment. I've also built affordable housing on time and under budget with good paying union labor. I've proven how accountable leadership can get big things done for our city. And I'm going to bring that level of accountability to the mayor's office next year, because that's what it's going to take to make our city safe and clean, end the open air drug markets, build more housing, and bring our businesses back. Thank you.
Mayor London Breed.
Thank you. I'm London Breed and I'm proud to be your mayor. Testing, 1, 2. I'm London Breed and I'm proud to be your mayor. I love this job and I love this city. But can we just take a moment to reflect on the fact that we've been through a very difficult time? And I became mayor during tragedy. And in fact, I led this city through a once in 100-year global pandemic, and we saved lives. These guys here running against me, they want to take us backwards. They want to continue to push against the city and make you feel bad about what San Francisco is. They are running against San Francisco. I'm the only one here running for San Francisco. I am proud of the work that I have done to deliver on helping over 15,000 people exit homelessness. We have helped build over 20,000 units of housing, and we have one of the lowest crime rates we've had in over 10 years, not including the pandemic. It is time for us to roll up our sleeves and continue to move this city forward. We are on the rise, and I am proud of the work that we have done and will continue to do together.
Mr. Peskin.
Thank you all for being here this evening. It's a pleasure sharing my 60th birthday with you, and thank you, Nancy Kern, for the cupcake. I've been elected to this Democratic Party 4 times by the people of San Francisco and served twice as its chair, and was very proud to lead our efforts to get Barack Obama elected in 2008 with record turnout in San Francisco. We sent people to Arizona, Nevada, and swing states. And in 2024, we all need to come together to do that again and defeat Donald Trump. And at the same time, we also need to get Republican money out of our local elections. For example, I'm talking about Better Neighborhoods for San Francisco, an organization that is run by a hard right billionaire who's given $13 million to federal candidates who are anti-trans, anti-choice, anti-union. We can come together. We can do this again and defeat Donald Trump. And at the same time, we need to get Republican money out of our local politics.
Thank you very much. I know clapping is fun, but let's refrain so that we can really dial down to what is important tonight and listening to what they have to say. Thank you. We're going to move to questions. Question number 1, public safety. How do you plan to reduce crime in San Francisco? Please provide specific solutions you would implement in the next year that would yield visible results. Again, we're going to be starting in order and then we will be rotating. 90 seconds is going to you, Mr. Farrell.
Thank you very much. In terms of public safety, unfortunately, it is now the #1 issue across the city of San Francisco. When I was budget chair for 4 years, and then when I became mayor the year after, when Ed Lee unfortunately passed away, we grew our police department to record staffing levels. I believe we have some of the best men and women in our police department here in San Francisco, in our fire department, in our sheriff's department as well. We simply need more of them in the city of San Francisco. 3 specific things that I will do as your mayor. 1, I do believe we need a new police chief. Chief Scott's a good man, but the average tenure of a police chief in the US is 3 years. He's been here close to 8. We need new leadership in our police department to grow our police department, to fight for a police department budget. I will do that as mayor. Second of all, I will restore the budget of our police department. I will not take out $120 million of our police department budget. I will restore that budget because I believe the #1 job of government is to protect our residents here in the city of San Francisco. And lastly, it all comes down to police staffing. Again, we grew our police department to over 2,300 officers when I was budget chair and when I became mayor. We're down 600 officers since. I will restore the staffing levels inside of our San Francisco Police Department to make sure we have lateral recruits, support Supervisor Dorsey's drop program, and fully fund our police academy to make sure we have the next generation of born and raised San Francisco police officers through our police academy. Thank you very much.
Mr. Safaí, same question.
Thank you. One of the things that we've started to see a little bit roll out in San Francisco that's a real effective strategy for dealing with crime and the perception of crime and public safety is taking officers out of their cars and doing proactive community policing. I authored a piece of legislation that just passed this past January that requires and mandates a community policing plan for every single police station in San Francisco. What that does is it says they have the money, they have the budget for the overtime, they need the leadership from the captains, they need full buy-in from the command staff and leadership from the mayor's office. When you put officers on the street, when you put them where the crimes are occurring, it reduces crime by 20 to 30%. And I can tell you in real time, I experienced this last week. I was on my way to a nonprofit gala, and as I was walking down Market Street, never had this happen in all my time in San Francisco. Someone locked on me and looked like they were coming to be aggressive. But I remember, and I saw across the street, half a block away, 2 officers standing at the cable car turnaround, walked over. They immediately de-escalated the situation. And by the end, I was shaking the individual's hand and was on my way. These kind of things and these kind of proactive community interventions will reduce crime. And not only that, it raises the morale of the police officers. That's another thing we need to do. We need to make sure that it's a welcoming environment, an environment that we're supported in. And we also have to invest aggressively into our intervention programs, because it's not just about staffing, but it's also about true intervention. for
Thank
the
you very
youth and
much.
adults. Thank you.
Mr. Lurie.
We need to fully staff our police department, our sheriff's department, our 911 dispatch office. We need to be for public safety, and it can't just be during an election year. It has to be 365 days a year for 4 years or 8 years. We've seen it done well during a conference or when a foreign leader comes to town. Our streets look safe, they look clean. So we know it's possible. I'm proud that I've seen just a glimpse. I've done 6 ride-alongs with SFPD over the last month and a half. What they are doing and the work that they do is extraordinary. They've told me that they like wearing the body cam footage or the cameras. They like knowing that everything is being recorded. They agree that we shouldn't be chasing suspects in dangerous and along commercial corridors. But we need to get them the help that they need to do their job. We need more community safety cameras. We need to be able to allow them to chase when it is safe. I had a friend this morning on Fillmore Street go into a Walgreens. As she was walking in, someone was walking out with a whole host of things. We need more officers walking the beat. We need more officers out on patrol, making sure that people aren't running red lights, running stop signs. Families are scared to walk their kids across crosswalks right now. We can do better. We need to fully staff our police and sheriff's department and our 911 dispatch office.
Mayor Breed.
First of all, this is not the Republican National Convention where every answer to public safety is police, number one. Number two, I'm really proud of what I've been able to do. And in fact, when Mark Farrell was temporary mayor of San Francisco, property crime was up, car break-ins were up, and violent crime was up. This year, and even last year, crime has been lower than it's been in 10 years, not including the pandemic. And I am proud of the work that we've done to not only build up the police department. And another thing, my budget is $200 million more than temporary Mark Farrell's budget was when he served as mayor in San Francisco. The fact is, we are seeing improvement, and I'm proud of the work we've done to invest and to support and to have the highest paying police department in the region. But also, I'm proud of the work we did to revitalize our department and to reform our department. 272 recommendations from the Obama U.S. Department of Justice. And we have provided alternatives to police. So our street crisis response team is out there dealing with people struggling with mental illness. Everything is not about police, but the work that we have done to do retail theft has declined lower than in any other major city in this country. We've seen car break-ins decline. We've seen all this changing. But again, I understand that unless you feel safe, unless when something happens to
Thank you, Mayor.
it's not the same. And that is why we won't stop doing the work necessary to move this city forward.
Again, if we can make sure that we hold our responses so that we can hear what the candidates have to say. We will have a rebuttal in a couple of minutes, but let's listen to Mr. Peskin first.
Thank you, Teresa. I have always said that public safety is a progressive value. It is one of the most important things that a government must provide. But it's not just about press releases It's not about calls for bringing in the National Guard. I'm a big believer in community policing, where the cops know the names of their shopkeepers, where the residents know the names of their cops. And I see many of you from the northeast corner of the city, and that is what we have had at Central Station in the district that I represent. 25 years ago, we insisted that we have officers who speak Cantonese and know the community of Chinatown. And that is exactly what we have today. So I want to expand that to the rest of San Francisco. And I want to start that here in the Tenderloin that deserves it the most and has demanded it the longest. And it's not just, as Mayor Breed said, about police officers. It is also about having jobs for at-risk youth. It is about having community ambassadors. It is about having individuals who can give counseling and assistance to the victims of crime. That is what I have done as a supervisor, and that is what I will do as mayor.
Mr. Farrell, you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
Thank you very much. So of course, Mayor Breed is sitting up top here on stage saying it's not about police officers. Because under her
I said it's
watch,
not just-
over 600 police officers are down and have left the department. Since I was mayor and interim mayor in 2018, over 25% of our police department has been eviscerated because this mayor wouldn't fund their budget and couldn't hire enough police officers here in town. And when this mayor talks about growing the police department budget by $200 million, what she doesn't talk about is the rest of the budget is grown by $5 billion. So that's not enough, and that type of growth is an embarrassment. I will make sure our police department is fully funded so that the residents of San Francisco feel safe every single day in San Francisco.
Thank you very much. Oh, we get to rebut, yes. I will rebut.
I'll let you go.
Here's the thing. I said it's not just about police officers, and Mark Farrell has been nowhere to be found throughout the entire time that we've been dealing with crises, dealing with pandemic. And to be clear, when he was mayor, his contract was one of the reasons why many of the officers decided to leave in the first place. My contract has made this region one of the highest paid police departments with retention bonuses. We have seen less officers leave the department. And again, I will say,
Thank you, Mayor.
It's not just about policing, it's also about community.
On the direct attack, I will let Mr. Farrell, and then we'll move on to question number 2.
Oh, we're going back.
I agree.
Because he was attacked. Well, we're gonna allow this, and then we're gonna move on to question number 2. And I really do not want to have anyone removed, but we can. So let's be mindful. Let's just be mindful and let's keep this civil. That is what I'm asking.
Thank you very much. I believe it's about our community, and it's because of our community, I believe that we need to fully fund our police department here in the city of San Francisco. The reason we don't have enough police officers is because this current mayor cannot recruit police officers here in town because she defunded our police department, because she turned her back on our police officers. When I was budget chair and when I became mayor, we averaged 5 police academy classes each year with over 50 recruits. This current mayor has averaged 3 police academy classes. The last one graduated 15 people. That is not a commitment to public safety. I will make sure I commit because I believe it's the #1 job of government. And I will make sure, once again, each and every.
Moving on to question number 2. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question 2.
Mr. Safaí, you are going to start on this one. Question number 2 deals with economic recovery. Again, I will ask so that we can be on point and hear from the candidates. Number 2, what is your strategy or blueprint for revitalizing the tourism economy in San Francisco? Mr. Safaí.
So one of the things that we hear over and over again when people are coming to San Francisco, when I think of tourism, I don't just think of people coming from out of state. I think of also people coming from the region and the Bay Area. And even people down the peninsula I've spoken to over the last few years have been concerned about the crime and safety in San Francisco. It's something that's deterred people from coming into our city. But I was really encouraged today when we walked past the cable car to see that line all the way down the street on Powell. Looked like it was going to be about a 30-minute wait. So we're beginning to change the perception, but we have to make people understand when it comes to economic recovery, it's also about clean and safe. One of my plans that I would put forward as mayor would be to make our public works department a 24-hour department so that we're not just working up to 8 o'clock at night, but it's 24 hours. I would also do everything I can to think about our 3 crown jewels: Union Square, Fisherman's Wharf, and our downtown. I put forward a plan to bring universities into our downtown so that we can start to occupy the 40 million square feet of empty office space. It's a model that Phoenix, Arizona did very successfully. I had a delegation in there from out of town just recently. People are excited about the opportunity to purchase our buildings and invest in San Francisco. That would be a wonderful way to revitalize our downtown. We have individuals and we need a reset in Fisherman's Wharf. We can revitalize that part. And then also Union Squares need to be reimagined and invested in a different way. If we do that,
Mr. Lurie,
we will set
thank
our
you.
economy on the right track.
First, we need to act. We need to address public safety downtown and in our corridors. We need certainty for our businesses, small businesses and big businesses to come back. We need to make sure that they can get zoned properly. And third, we need to transform what we're doing downtown and how we think about it. It needs to be a 24/7 community. We need residential. We need arts and culture. We need restaurants. But here's what I'm so confident about, that we can do this. Mayor Lee in 2013 asked me to chair the bid to bring Super Bowl 50 to San Francisco and to the Bay Area. We went up against Miami for that. Those were the days we were beating Miami and everything. Those days are coming back. We were able to bring that game here in 2016, $240 million worth of economic revenue. Our restaurants were full, our bars were full, our hotel rooms were full. And I don't say that just to talk about the past. What's coming up next is we got the NBA All-Star Game coming in 2025. We got Super Bowl 60 coming back in 2026. And we have 6 World Cup matches coming to the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm proud to have been part of that. $1.4 billion in economic revenue coming to our city and to our region. We have to get our act together between now and then. We can do this. I'm confident in it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Breed.
Can you ask the question?
The question again?
Yeah.
Economic recovery, what is your strategy or blueprint for revitalizing the tourism economy in San Francisco?
So what we are seeing and what I'm excited about, Supervisor Safaí alluded to, that people are coming back to San Francisco. Our flights through SFO are 97% domestic flights pre-pandemic level and over 100% international flights. People are coming back to the city. Our hotels are over 80% occupied. And that is because San Francisco is changing and becoming better. In fact, Daniel alluded to that. Many of the things he talked about, not just the NBA All-Star Game, but also the Labor Cup is coming next year, as well as a number of other amazing sports events and activities. I'm really proud that San Francisco is becoming a sports destination. And I'm proud that a lot of the work that we've done to transform our city, whether it's our downtown ambassadors, our investments in downtown, our changes, and all the things that we're starting to see, it is finally starting to come back to life. And it has a lot to do with the leadership that I have implemented in getting us here. And downtown can't continue to be a 9-to-5 financial district like it's been for decades. It has to be a 24/7 neighborhood where you work, where you live, where you play. And we have a 92% increase in nightlife because of our block parties, our First Thursday events and activations, creating entertainment zones and getting to yes instead of saying no to fun. I am proud of the work that we have been doing to get San Francisco moving forward, and people are really finally starting to have a great time.
Thank you. Mr. Peskin.
Yes, we have to revive downtown and Union Square, But we can't forget about our neighborhoods, which is actually very attractive to tourists, whether it's the Castro or the Mission. And we have to remember that having vital neighborhoods where you can walk, where you can bike to your family-owned cafe, to your grocery store, to your hardware store, where we have no vacancies is a big part of the answer as well. And I have to say that offering tax breaks to small businesses is a big part of that. And the mayor and I have collaborated on that, and that will be on the November ballot. As for downtown, we have to remember that we have already worked on office to housing conversions. But we also have to remember that the massive zoning changes that are being proposed for our neighborhoods, Irving Street, 24th Street in Noe Valley, other places, can lead to displacement, to doubling and tripling of rents, to vacancies, to high-end retail stores. So we need to actually not go down that road. Remember, we can recover downtown and concentrate on our neighborhoods.
Mr. Farrell.
Thank you. To me, bringing tourism back is all about bringing the vibrancy back to the city of San Francisco. I think we've talked a lot enough about public safety at this point in time. But public safety and street conditions are what led to conventions leaving town. Conventions feed our hotel and restaurants downtown all year round. We need to focus on those core issues. But then we need to get aggressive inside of City Hall. In the mid-2010s, under the mayorship of Ed Lee, we did the mid-market tax incentive. We improved a neighborhood here in San Francisco to great effect. It wasn't perfect. We learned our lessons, but we need to bring those types of policies back to the downtown core, back to South of Market. The worst part about it is right now, it's empty. But I believe in San Francisco. The future is there for us for the taking. There is a brighter future ahead for the city of San Francisco, but it's going to take leadership inside of City Hall to be proactive with our business community, to bring employers and employees back to that downtown core. And I also agree, it has to be about the conversion from commercial to residential. But it's not just those 10 buildings people are talking about today. New York City, Wall Street in the 1980s was a ghost town on the weekend, but they made a commitment to converting to residential. What about if we allow these Class B and Class C office buildings to demo? What if we upzone the financial district? Commit to creative tax vehicles out of City Hall? We can build for the future of San Francisco, where people are not only living, but they're working in the downtown core, and visitors are back here in the city of San Francisco. That's a city I will fight for.
Thank you. I just have a question. Can everyone hear the candidates in the back? Can you hear? So it's loud enough? So. Can I ask you guys to move of your microphones just a little bit? Okay. Okay, we're going to move to the third question. This is dealing with public health. We're going to start with Mr. Lurie. The question number 3 is, San Francisco is facing a critical crisis when it comes to overdose deaths. There have been more than 3,000 overdose deaths since 2020. How do you plan to address this crisis on our streets? Be specific.
When I started my campaign, it was around Thanksgiving, actually, and I was actually biking through the Tenderloin, and I came upon somebody being Narcaned. I was sure that I was watching somebody dying before my eyes. I went to a local bakery, got water as I was instructed to do, came back, and she was up. And we see this every single day. And frankly, it's shameful. My son asked me what drug was being used as we passed on the way to school just 2 weeks ago. Was it fentanyl or meth? We need to do better. It's why I've called for a fentanyl state of emergency here in San Francisco. We need to surge resources. I have a plan backed by behavioral health experts and law enforcement that goes hard at drug dealers, first-time drug dealers, putting an ankle monitor around them and having a stay-away order for those people. We need to get tough. We need to send a message to the country and to the world that you do not come to San Francisco to deal drugs, to do drugs, or to sleep on our streets. I have 6 points on the demand side on how we help make sure that when somebody's 5150 and other such things, that we care for them. We build the mental health and drug treatment beds. You can learn more about it at my
Thank you.
website. Thank you.
Mayor Breed, same question, public health.
I'm really proud of the work that we have done to invest in significant change around the open air drug dealing and the loss of life from fentanyl. I have worked with people who are not only former drug dealers, but former drug users as a way to make very difficult decisions to arrest people who are out there selling poison on the streets of San Francisco, but also people who are using with the hopes of getting them treatment. We got Proposition F passed, which requires that if you are struggling with addiction and you want money from the city, you need to be in treatment. How has it been going? Well, we've made over 3,000 arrests. 848 of those folks had outstanding warrants in various jurisdictions. We're working with state and federal agencies like never before in order to combat this issue. And we are seeing significant aggressive change, mostly in the daytime, and we continue to see improvements at night. There are definitely more work to be done. But as far as the treatment side, I'm really proud that we have invested over $20 million in abstinence-based programs, 7 new programs that were never a part of public health response. This is going to take everything, because the fact is San Francisco is not alone in dealing with this crisis. In fact, I've had mayors call me from all over this country saying, how are you doing it? How are you getting support from the Drug Enforcement Agency, the U.S. Attorney's Office,
you, Mayor.
the California Patrol? And we're doing it together and we're making progress.
Mr. Peskin?
When we are dealing with the tragic issues of fentanyl overdoses, of mental health crises, we have to remember this is not just a public safety issue, this is a public health issue, and we have to treat it like that. And we have experience and we have a proven track record because we dealt with an epidemic and it was called COVID-19. And we should all be very proud of San Francisco. I think there are many people who actually started to believe in government when we all started working 24/7 and treated it like an emergency. Mayor Breed, Supervisor Safaí, and their staffs. At the beginning of COVID, I was petrified that in Chinatown, where you have very dense housing, congregate kitchens, shared bathrooms, that the pandemic would sweep through there. It ended up having some of the lowest transmission rates. We can apply those lessons to this epidemic. We need to work together. We need to stop blaming each other. We need to stop with the finger pointing and come together around these overdoses, around these mental health crises, the way we did during COVID-19, rather than declaring it an emergency, then not declaring it an emergency, setting up a leakage center, closing it 11 months later. We've got to treat it like COVID, where we all came together, we listened to each other, we listened to the community, and we got the job done, and we should all be proud of that.
Thank you. Mr. Farrell?
Thank you. The honest answer is our city's current approach to the drug crisis we have on the streets of San Francisco is not working. Last year, over 850 people overdosed on the streets of San Francisco. There's a hotel a few blocks away from here where 40 dead bodies were pulled out of that hotel last year from drug overdose. It's not working. Every single day, the city funds workers in the Tenderloin handing out free packets of tinfoil to those suffering from fentanyl addiction on our streets. That is not working. I don't believe it's humane. I don't believe it's compassionate. I don't believe it's progressive to allow record number of people to die on our streets every single year. My North Star as mayor will be saving lives. How can we get people off the streets of San Francisco that are suffering from drug addiction into shelter, into housing, and connect them with services here in our city? I also declared a fentanyl state of emergency in my campaign and said I would do that when I was mayor. We will ask the state and the federal government for additional funding, additional law enforcement resources, but more than anything, we will build a 24/7 centralized intake center so that we have one place to take all these individuals suffering from drug addiction, from homelessness on the streets of San Francisco. Let's get them off the streets. Let's help save their lives and get them on to a better life. That to me is my North Star, and that's what I will do as mayor next year. Thank you.
Mr. Safaí.
Thank you. Let's be clear, folks. We are failing as a city. There is no other issue that defines San Francisco right now more than our overdose crisis. There's all subsets of it. The drug dealing on the streets, some of the petty theft and crime that's happening within our stores. 811 people died last year from overdose. Thousands more were resuscitated. Since 2020, 3,000 people have died. This is not a criminal justice issue. This is a public health crisis, and it has to be treated as such. And we need bold leadership. We can't run and hide on when it says, oh, the law doesn't allow us to do. We need to set up overdose prevention centers. We were bold when it came to gay marriage. We can be bold when it comes to overdose prevention centers. And guess what? They did it in New York City. The police department and the community worked together to get people off the streets and into the place that they need with a supervised medical professional, ensuring that they're not dying. That bold leadership is missing right now in this city. We also, and I'm proud to say, I was the first to lead on abstinence-based treatment in this city. Okay, we got that in the budget. We got it funded in Union Square, Nob Hill. We need to expand that. We need to use the Prop 1 dollars to expand more mental health and addiction recovery beds because we have the facilities.
Thank you
We
very
have
much,
St.
Dr.
Francis, we have St. Mary's. We need to come together and utilize that to save lives today.
Mayor, your administration was mentioned twice. Do you want a rebuttal on
Oh,
that?
yeah. Thank you. I'll always take the
It
opportunity.
was mentioned twice.
First of all, I would just say there's a lot of comments about what needs to be done, and the difference is I'm actually doing it. It's easy to run for mayor against me and to say that the work we're doing is not working. And the people who are the beneficiaries, the folks who work here, the folks who live in this community, they see a difference. Do I wish I can wave my magic wand or snap my fingers and have this all change? It's not as simple as warehousing people who struggle with addiction. It's about making investments,
Thank you,
making
Mayor.
arrests, and drawing a hard line, which is what we've done.
We're moving to question number 4. Housing. What have you done to facilitate building affordable housing and overcoming neighborhood opposition to affordable housing? Have you ever opposed building affordable housing in a particular neighborhood? We are starting with Mayor Breed.
Thank you. And since Aaron Peskin is next, I can invoke your name. In the last debate, Supervisor Peskin talked about my plans to rezone our city as repeating redevelopment agency. And to be clear, I grew up in a neighborhood where redevelopment destroyed my community. In fact, the project that I grew up in, we had 300 units and they were torn down and only 200 built. It was exactly what they were trying to do, and that is keep a lot of African Americans out of this city. We cannot be afraid to move forward with strong housing policies. San Francisco is not a museum. It is a living, breathing thing because of its people. Too many people grow up in this city, and unless you're wealthy or you are lucky enough to hit the lottery and get an affordable unit, oftentimes people are not able to live here. It's making it difficult for us to attract and retain talent in our city workforce, and also many of the job opportunities that exist. I will be relentless in my pursuit to do everything I can, and I have done, to move our policies forward, rezone our city, and make it possible to build. Stop saying no and get to yes. That is what I consistently done, including new mechanism, new financing tools like $265 million to do Petrel Power Station, to do Treasure Island, and other projects that would be stalled if it weren't for
Thank you, Mayor.
creativity to get it done.
Thank you, Mayor.
And I will be relentless in doing so.
Mr. Peskin, same question on housing.
Some folks will tell you, as a matter of fact, many of the candidates on this stage will tell you that if we build a lot of any kind of housing, prices will drop. Well, that's a bunch of horse pucky. In the last RENA cycle, we built 150% of our market rate housing goals, and housing prices continue to climb. I will be a mayor who is devoted to building affordable housing. And that is precisely what I have stood for. That is why I have never voted against any affordable housing, and why I've supported over $1 billion in general obligation bonds. It is why I've supported inclusionary housing. It is why I have said that if the Costa-Hawkins Act is repealed by the voters of the state of California in November, I will move immediately to extend rent control to the 40% of San Francisco renters who do not enjoy it, so that they will not be charged outrageous rent hikes and be subject to unfair evictions.
Thank you. Mr. Farrell?
I believe affordable housing is one of the key issues moving forward here in the city of San Francisco. Our oldest child is our daughter, and she's about to head off to college, graduated from high school a few weeks ago. When she graduates from college, I want her to move back to San Francisco. But in order to do so, we have to have affordability for our young families and for young individuals here in San Francisco, and we don't today. And to me, the way that we get there is to build more housing across the board. We need to build more middle-income housing, without a doubt. But we also need to build more market rate housing, because the city has failed doing that over the past few years. I believe that the next mayor has to be incredibly pro-housing here in the city of San Francisco. I believe we should meet and exceed our state RENA goals, because the more units we build here in the San Francisco, the lower the cost of housing is for everybody. I believe it includes zoning and upzoning parts of the financial district, south of Market and Mission Bay neighborhoods. I believe in building more along our transit corridors and supporting legislation from a number of different supervisors in our different neighborhoods here in San Francisco. I believe it's about legislation, reducing inclusionary so we build more units here in San Francisco, reversing the doubling of transfer taxes. And it's about mayoral directives to make sure our planning department and DBI are streamlined so we can actually get more housing built, get people back to work, and make sure that the city of San Francisco remains affordable for everybody. Thank you.
Mr. Safaí, same question on housing.
Great, thank you. When I got elected to the Board of Supervisors, there really was not a voice that was fighting for working families. We talk a lot about housing, market rate housing. We talk a lot about housing for low-income families. But everything that I have done, everything that I have been about on the Board of Supervisors has been looking at things through the lens of working people. And a lot of times, teachers, nurses, janitors, they make a little bit too much to afford our pure definition of affordable housing. So I've worked from every moment I've been on the board to build housing in our district, right, John Avalos? A district that had not had housing built in it for almost 40 years. He started the process, I finished the process. We built 600 units of housing in the 8 years that I've been there. 65% of it is affordable. And we expanded the definition of what was affordable to include working people. And that's something that's been missing in our city. We've passed affordable housing bonds. I work with Supervisor Peskin to update the inclusionary housing laws, and Supervisor Farrell when he was on the board. But we have to make sure that we keep the city a city for everyone. Yes, we can build on our commercial corridors, 6 to 8 stories. We can expand and do more affordable housing bonds, but we have to remember this city needs to remain a city for all San Franciscan, and that includes working people. Thank you.
Mr. Lurie?
The City Hall insiders that are on this stage with me have built up a broken, ineffective, and corrupt City Hall bureaucracy. When you are talking about the fact that when you apply for housing, you put a permit in, to the time it's approved, it's 1,100 days. You have to pay someone, a permit expediter, to jump the line. Oh, they're really trying to shut me down.
I believe it was mood lighting.
You can start.
It's broken. I am committed to building housing at all levels, affordable housing especially for our nurses, our firefighters, our teachers, our police officers. Every single person that is taking care of us during our darkest times or teaching our kids should be able to afford to live here. But here's why I'm so confident that we can do this. Because I've done it. I worked with Supervisor Jane Kim to get housing built in Soma, 145 units on time, under budget, with good paying union labor. I had to go to all the supervisor's office. We got an 11-0 vote at the board, and we got it done. We handed this model of how we built housing to this administration and to others, and nothing has been done. We got teacher housing built in the Sunset. Excellent. It took us 7 years.
Thank you,
We
Mr.
can do
Lurie.
better.
Mr. Peskin, your name was taken by Mayor Breed. Do you want 30 seconds? That is a part of the rules. You have an automatic rebuttal.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
Teresa. So let's talk about the best housing record that many of you have never heard of, because actually bringing people together is very complicated. I have voted for over 100,000 units of housing in San Francisco, from the Bayview, Hunters Point Shipyard to Rincon Hill, Central Soma, Western Soma, Park Merced, the Eastern neighborhoods. That takes bringing people together. You do this with neighborhoods, not against neighborhoods.
Thank you very much. We're going to have another housing question, number 5. We're going to be starting with you, Mr. Peskin, who feels very passionate about this. The next question is also focusing on housing. With the question is, what is your view on increasing housing density in the city, particularly along commercial corridors? How would you address potential impacts such as the displacement of small businesses, tenants, and the loss of rent control units? Mr. Peskin.
Thank you, Teresa, for that question. And let me just say, I represent the densest district in the second densest city in America. I am not scared of density. As a matter of fact, I have called for more density and more affordable housing in the district that I have had the honor of representing for 17 of the last 24 years. When we got those parcels after the command decision was made to knock down the Embarcadero Freeway, and we received the parcels at Broadway and the Embarcadero and Broadway and Battery and Broadway and Sansom, then Mayor Brown had a completely different vision. I insisted that each and every one of those parcels be built as dense, affordable housing. And today, each and every one of those parcels are dense, affordable housing with vital ground floor commercial. And we can do that all over San Francisco. But you take care of your rent control tenants. You take care of your small businesses. We know how to do this without bulldozing the things that we love.
Mr. Farrell, same question, of course, density issues on housing.
Thank you. So the answer is, of course, I support building more dense housing along our transit corridors, because it's what I did when I was in office before. When I represented District 2 on the Board of Supervisors, we built an incredible amount of units on our transit corridors, in particular Van Ness, throughout District 2. And we kickstarted the process around 3 major projects that will bring over 1,000 units of housing to the city of San Francisco inside of District 2 and very close to where we live. The CPMC site at 3800 California, the UCSF Laurel Heights site at 3333 California, as well as the Lucky Penny site at the corner of Masonic and Geary. I believe the next mayor of San Francisco needs to be incredibly pro-housing. We need to upzone smartly in our financial district and South of Market and Mission Bay neighborhoods. We need to build along our transit corridors, and we need to build affordable housing. But more than that, we also need to have policies to support people living in San Francisco that we want to make sure work and live in our city. Instead of a stick and taxing people for vacant units, let's give them a carrot. Let's give it tax incentives to landlords to rent to police officers, firefighters, sheriffs, 911 dispatchers, teachers, and nurses. Let's do that. When I was a member of the Board of Supervisors, I created the first down payment assistance program for our first responders so they could buy homes here in the city of San Francisco. We need to make sure we build more housing across the city of San Francisco and more housing for the people that live and work in our city that we want to make sure are here to support us.
Thank you very much. Mr. Safaí, same question. Density on housing.
Do me a favor, can you repeat the question?
Absolutely.
I want to make sure I'm answering it right.
What is your view on
Follow-
increasing housing density in the city, particularly along commercial corridors? How would you address potential impacts such as the displacement of small businesses, tenants, and the loss of rent control units?
Thank you. So when I first came on the board of supervisors 8 years ago, I'm really proud to say that we embraced a local density program that had trade-offs for additional affordable housing called Home SF. That had sat there a year before and died. Previous board had voted against it. It did not make it through. But I came on the board and changed the balance. The Home SF program is very simple. It says along commercial corridors, looking at infill housing, protecting rent control, looking at existing businesses. You want to ensure that you're preserving those. You can increase density, but you also have to add more affordable housing as well, more affordability. And that's something that's been missed in a lot of the conversations. We can't just keep talking about increasing housing and density without thinking about who's going to live there. And are we going to make sure that this remains an affordable city for everyone? As I said before, I support along our commercial corridors looking for the increase of 6 to 8 units of housing, increasing that density. But not every neighborhood in San Francisco is created the same. We have to be thoughtful in our approach. We can't just look at Google Maps and put a number out there on a certain part of the city and then realize that's actually someone's home that's living there. And those are generations of people that have lived there. Many times people, that's their only family wealth. So I support more density. I want to make sure working families can access that housing. I want to make sure that people that build the housing, building trades and others can actually stay in the city and live in that housing as well. We have to have a real balance.
Thank you, Mr. Safaí.
Thank you.
Mr. Lurie?
I'm going to just reiterate what I said before. We take too long for permitting. I have a plan in place that will help streamline the building of housing. Experts say it shaves off 4 to 5 months on the process. We need to allow our teachers to afford to live in the places they work. We need to allow our teachers to, our nurses, our firefighters, our police officers to also live and work here. 80% of our police officers live outside of town. Our nurses is close to 80% as well, and they make a decent, good living, and they can't afford to be here. Simply put, we need to streamline the bureaucracy, get more housing built, get the bureaucracy out of the way. We definitely need more density along commercial corridors. I also support 6 to 8 stories. What about Candlestick Point? About the southeast part? There are opportunities for us to build also downtown. We have the space. Let's do it thoughtfully. Let's do it smartly. Let's build for the 21st century. We've waited way too long. Thank you.
Be clear that I believe we need to build housing in all neighborhoods all over San Francisco. San Francisco is a living and breathing city. It is not a museum, and it's important that we look at ways in which we can get more density, not just in transit corridors, but in other parts of other neighborhoods. And to be clear, as I said earlier today, I am not trying to do a redevelopment 2.0 and bulldoze neighborhoods and destroy people's housing and those kinds of things. I want to make sure that we're being as creative as possible in getting more density in every part of San Francisco. Is it realistic to think that on Sloat Avenue, there's going to be a 30-story building? That is just not going to happen. But could there be an 8 to 10-story building? Yes, there can. And that is what we need to start thinking about when we're looking at the city for the future. You know, I remember when I first ran for mayor, and I asked folks on the West Side, you know, how many of you been here 30, 40, 50 years? A lot of people. How many of you raise your kids here? Hands go up. How many of your kids still live here? Many of my friends still don't live here because people have gotten theirs and they don't want anyone else to have theirs. We have to do everything we can to ensure that we're creating a San Franciscans for all, not just a San Francisco for those who are lucky enough to win the lottery to get affordable housing or have enough money to afford to live here.
Thank you. Let's hold up on our applause. We will have that soon. But moving to question number 6, turning to public safety again, we're going to be starting with Mr. Farrell. The latest police department data reveals an increase of hate crimes and incidences in San Francisco. As the city's mayor, what can you do to combat that?
Thank you for that question. I'm reminded that public safety is, again, the #1 issue here in the city of San Francisco right now, across residents of every single neighborhood, but in particular among certain communities. We've heard and we've read and I've talked to so many people in our Asian community in particular around the Asian hate crimes that has plagued our city for the last few years. It is unacceptable that any community here in the city of San Francisco feels specifically vulnerable because who they are and what they look like. As mayor of San Francisco, I will not stand for that. We need to make sure that we have a police department and all of our public safety departments fully staffed. Unless they are staffed, we will not have enough officers on the street to protect the residents of our city and to deter crime here in San Francisco. Asian hate crime in San Francisco is unacceptable. Let me be very clear and very blunt about that. I've talked to too many family members, too many individuals over the last year, shown up at too many rallies to think that what we are doing in San Francisco is working. And since last October, we have members of our Jewish community as well that feel vulnerable here in San Francisco because of anti-Semitism. That is unacceptable. We value here in San Francisco our spirit and our ethos, every one of our individual communities in San Francisco. And as mayor, I will support each of our individual communities and make sure that everyone in our city, no matter who they are,
Thank you
what they
very
look
much.
like, feel safe in the city of San Francisco. Thank you.
Mr. Safaí. Yes, of course. Turning to public safety again, the latest police department data reveals an increase of hate crimes and incidences in San Francisco. As the city's mayor, what can you do to combat this?
I think one of the saddest things that happened during COVID in this city was the exponential increase of Asian hate crimes in our city. There's no question about it. But let's take a step back for a second. It's not just the Asian community that is experiencing hate crimes. It's a lot of immigrant communities. I am the only immigrant on this stage. I have talked to thousands and thousands of communities, people that don't speak English, and they too are often the victims of hate crimes. And not only that, scams and other ways in which they're taken advantage of in our city. We have to work with both our public defender's office, our district attorney's office, and our police department to make sure that hate crimes are handled in the right way. And yes, it's also religious-based. We've seen a massive increase in that across the city. We saw a mosque that was vandalized. We've seen temples in our city that are vandalized. We have to think about this in the terms of what every person in the city wants is they want to feel safe. They want to be recognized that the government will stand up for them and that they won't be ignored. And that's what I will do as mayor. I will elevate this issue. I will embrace this issue and be a force to ensure that hate crime is not something that is ignored by our city. Thank you.
Mr. Lurie.
I think we can all on this stage agree on this, that hate must have no safe haven here in San Francisco. Whether you're talking about anti-Asian hate, whether you're talking about people going after our LGBTQ plus community, whether you talk about people coming after Jewish people or the Islamophobia that we've also seen, it is shameful and it will have no place in my administration or in my city. We saw it on the steps of City Hall as well. This is not okay. This is why we need officers walking the beat. We need officers, police and sheriffs, and ambassadors walking the beat who look like the communities that they serve, that speak the language of the communities that they serve, or are part of the communities that they serve. It goes back to your housing question. We need to make sure that people who are taking care of us during our darkest times, we are taking care of them. And so I will just tell you, as your next mayor, hate will have no safe haven here in San Francisco. I know the Democratic Party and the DCCC will stand with me. We have to send that message every single day.
Thank you. Mayor Breed?
Sadly, we've seen, unfortunately, so many people in this city be victims of hate crimes. And I know that what was mentioned earlier about the issues around anti-Asian hate, what I am proud of is that we came together with community, with a number of nonprofit organizations to invest millions of dollars into ambassador programs and senior escort programs. The self-help for the elderly has clocked in 32,000 hours and have helped 2,500 seniors, making sure that they have an escort to their appointments if they so choose. And ambassadors from our street violence prevention program, consisting of many African Americans and Cantonese speaking individuals from community youth centers. They have been out patrolling neighborhoods, making sure that they are looking out for the most vulnerable. During a time of anti-Asian hate, we didn't point the finger. We came together in order to make sure that people knew that we stood with them. That is what it's about, whether it's our LGBTQ community, our African-American community, or what have you. It is important as a city that a mayor stands up in every single instance, no matter who has been targeted. I have always been clear in my messaging and my investments and my resources that we will do everything we can to fight against hate, and we have supported and uplifted and brought communities together as a result of it.
Mr. Peskin?
As a Jewish man whose family experienced the hatred of the Holocaust, I agree with everything that my fellow candidates have said relative to real solutions, which I've experienced as a supervisor for Chinatown, where we immediately stood up cameras. But it is also about changing the tone at the top, both locally and at the national level. And words do matter. And the behavior that got normalized by the hatred that was spewed by Donald Trump made it even to tolerant San Francisco. We must not only repudiate that behavior, we have to make sure that Donald Trump does not become president of the United States again. That precipitates down to the local level. And then we all, as citizens, as elected leaders, have an obligation, yes, to hire officers, yes, to hire them in language, yes, to have all of the services that we're talking about, but we also have an obligation to spread the love and to treat each other with respect and to create that tone in government and in the community. That is on all of us.
Thank you very much. Our last question before we move into the candidate asking question is question number 7. It deals with leadership. San Francisco is comprised of diverse communities based on race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, economic status. How have you supported any of these communities during your career? We start with Mr. Safaí.
Great, thank you. As I said before, I am the only immigrant on this stage. And everything that I have done my entire career has been fighting for working people and fighting for diversity. I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought for a second. Can you just...
San Francisco is comprised of diverse communities based on race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, economic status. How have you supported any of these communities during your career?
Right. So the legislation that we've done on the board to advance LGBT rights, as a chair of the Rules Committee, going out of our way to ensure diversity in hiring, making sure that we have representation on our commissions. Everything that I have been about has been about embracing diversity. In my hiring, the reflection on my staff, we have the most diverse staff. And I'm very proud to say I've represented the most diverse part of San Francisco. The Excelsior Outer Mission is the most diverse neighborhoods and set of neighborhoods in San Francisco. So when we're talking about advancing rights for the LGBT community, when we're talking about advancing rights for the immigrant community, when we're talking about advancing diversity and representation in small business or boards or commissions or elected office, all the elected offices that I've been a supporter of and championed for, We've been advancing that every single step of the way. It defines the work that I've done. It defines the legislative agenda that I've been a part of. And I'm proud to say that that's something that has been a guiding principle of the work that I've done over the last 8 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lurie, same question.
This is a group of insiders, I suspect. And so much has been made of my background, and I expect the electorate to take that into account. But what I'm really hoping that you all take into account are the choices that I have made at every single turn with my life and my career. I've always wanted to set an example for my 2 young kids. I started an organization focused on tackling issues of poverty in 2005. I brought the great business leaders and civic leaders and nonprofit leaders together to tackle issues of homelessness and education and employment for the last 20 years. I've made sure that we've invested over $500 million into community to provide everyone with an opportunity. And so I will put my track record, my career, up against any other candidate when it comes to serving our community. And I want to continue to do that as your next mayor. Thank you.
Mayor Breed?
I'm really proud of the work that we've done to invest in communities, especially that are disproportionately impacted by a number of events. During COVID, the Latino community was disproportionately impacted, and immigrants were not able to receive the same benefits. We invested money into helping people pay their rent, helping them shelter in place in hotels, making sure that they had financial support when they couldn't work. And during the rise in anti-Asian hate, I already talked a little bit about some of the work we did to invest in community and to support community. After the tragic death of George Floyd, we invested resources to support the African-American community of San Francisco, disproportionately impacted by a lot of number of things, including homelessness in this city. When people have attacked transgender, members of our transgender community, I created a program to provide universal basic income and end trans homelessness in San Francisco. Every single time the opportunity has come and people have been under attack or disproportionately impacted, I have not only made changes to policies, but investments to support and to uplift those communities who were impacted every single time. And I will always do that. I have done it, and I will continue to do that as mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Peskin?
Thank you, Teresa. So I have been looking at our policies through an equity lens long before we were using those terms, whether it was general obligation bonds for building new parks, where early on I insisted that parks in Japantown and Portsmouth Square in Chinatown got their fair share. In the current bond that is headed for this November's ballot, to make sure that the city clinic, which is so important for getting to zero for the LGBT community, be included in that bond. For in the early days of same-sex marriage, to make sure that I was there performing hundreds of marriages in the early days of that glorious time when Gavin Newsom first became mayor in 2004. The list goes on, making sure that working people from communities of color can have access to jobs in the trades with local hire, and by the way, this is a supervisor who stood up against Prop 209, even when San Francisco was being sued because it was the right thing to do.
Thank you. Mr. Farrell, last question.
I will say the best part of growing up here in the city of San Francisco is that you have friends of every race, every ethnicity, every religion. And it becomes what you hold dear as a San Francisco resident. And it's why I thank my dad every single day for making the financial sacrifices he did with my mom to allow me to be born and raised here in San Francisco. When I'm proud that my children are experiencing the same things here in our city. But it's exactly those San Francisco values and our ethos that we need to protect here in our city going forward. I am proud and will stand up to my track record inside of City Hall, supporting our queer community through multiple pieces of legislation that I authored, supporting our women's rights here in San Francisco, and multiple pieces of legislation to support women's rights in the city of San Francisco, and to support every one of our individual communities here in the city of San Francisco. We do it not because it's political, but because it's right, and it's because who we are as San Francisco residents and who we are as San Franciscans. I've done it before inside of City Hall as supervisor. I've done it before inside of City Hall as mayor, and I will do it again next year as mayor of San Francisco. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we're going to move now to the candidate to candidate section. The candidates will be able to pose a question to another candidate. They're going to have 90 seconds for the recipient to respond. I'm going to start with Mr. Farrell.
Okay, thank you very much. My question is Supervisor Safaí. So I read an article over the weekend about your plans around loan forgiveness for our first responders here in San Francisco. I've been very clear tonight. I believe public safety is one of our main issues here in town. I've always been a big supporter of our law enforcement personnel, started the first down payment assistance program here in San Francisco. I want them to live and work in our city. I believe you have an innovative idea. I want to hear more about it, if you'd be so kind, because I want to be the first person on the stage to commit to support that as well as mayor of San Francisco. Supervisor?
Sometimes when you have 90 seconds, it's hard to talk about all the initiatives that you're a part of. So I appreciate that question. We just rolled out, and we're going to be introducing tomorrow a loan forgiveness program for our first responders. One of the things that we know is that this is the first time in the state of California's history that you have to have a 4-year degree at least to be a police officer, and that a lot of nurses, firefighters, paramedics, sheriffs, they come in with student loan debt. So you've heard a lot about tonight. We have a staffing crisis in our city. Many of those that I talked about, 911 call operators as well, were short-staffed. So we have to get creative on how we're going to recruit them and retain them. So my proposal is a fund for up to, it would begin at about $1 million. We want to work with philanthropy. We want to look for savings within the budget. And believe me, we put a lot of contracts out on the street. Some of them are nonprofits, some of them are with corporations. We have to look for savings within our existing budget. And you heard last week, a philanthropist wanted to give $1 million to our police department. These are the kind of partnerships that we can put together, give up to $25,000 per first responder, but they have to work for the city for at least 3 years before they can access that money. This will not only recruit, but it will retain our first responders. And I think it's a smart and sensible way to proceed.
Thank you very much. We're going to switch over to Mr. Peskin. You get to ask a question to a candidate. 90 seconds again.
Thank you. I'll ask Mr. Lurie whether or not you supported Prop C in 2018. That was a tax on corporations making over $50 million to support homelessness, and whether you supported Prop I in 2020, which was for the sale of properties over $10 million, also for homelessness and housing. And if you did, whether you would commit as mayor, if you are to be mayor, to spending those dollars on the intended purposes, which has been a controversy at City Hall for a number of years. And if you oppose those measures, whether or not you would work to reverse them if you became mayor.
I appreciate the question, Board President. Prop C, I stayed out of. As the head of Tipping Point, I actually was trying early days to work with the business community and the nonprofit community, because there was a lot of nonprofits that actually didn't want that tax passed, to see if we could come to some sort of compromise. And we, as the CEO of Tipping Point, we stayed neutral on that. Once it was passed, we actually went right to work, and we actually placed staff members inside City Hall to help get it up and running. Some of the people that are still involved actually originated from Tipping Point. We need to spend those dollars wisely. I believe that we need to spend more of those dollars on shelter than is currently set up. There was a lot around mental health, which I think is important, and a lot around permanent housing. And as I said earlier, we've built permanent housing. I built it on time and under budget with good paying union labor, and the city hasn't then done more with it. And so now I believe we need more shelter beds in this city. In my first 6 months, I would stand up 1,500 shelter beds and make sure that there's a safe, dignified place for people so they no longer can resort to, nor will they be allowed to sleep on our streets.
What about Prop I?
Thank you very much, Mr. Lurie. Mr. Safaí, you get the next chance to ask a candidate a question.
Get ready, Daniel. You're gonna answer another question. Sorry. But listen, I think we have a lot of Democratic activists in the room. We have a lot of people that care deeply about grassroots involvement and grassroots campaigns. I think it's important for the voters of San Francisco and everyone in the room, if they didn't already know, to know that your mother gave $1 million to your candidacy. And why is that important? Well, guess what? For contrast, my mother's here. She gave me $150. Okay? And I worked for the janitors union for almost a decade. It would take 25 years for one of our janitors to earn $1 million. That is the single largest contribution in the city's history. Okay? A lot of people criticize that and believe that you're attempting to buy the mayor's office. What's your response?
I appreciate the opportunity. I expect this community, the San Francisco voters, to take into account how I was raised. You know me, Ahsha. But I really expect and hope that the voters of this city will also take into account the choices I've made with my life. And I said this once, but I'm going to say it again because it bears repeating. At every turn, whether it was starting Tipping Point, which I mentioned, whether it was bringing Super Bowl 50 here, I was asked to do that by Mayor Ed Lee and the 49ers. And guess what I did? I didn't say yes until I said, we're going to make this the most community-oriented, the most philanthropic Super Bowl ever. And so I said 25% of every corporate donation that comes in has to go back to the community. We put $13 million back into the community. I was just at Early Childhood Center this morning, the Wu Yi Children's Center, an amazing center that takes care of 1,500 kids in our city every single year. It's an organization that my family has been investing in for 30 years. We're going to put $12 million into the community for my family this year alone, focused on early childhood, focused on the arts, focused on building up our parks in San Francisco. Once again, you all need to take into account my background, but I hope you'll take into account my commitment to this city and every San Franciscan. I want to serve the community again as your mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, very much. Mayor Breed?
I'd like to ask Mark a question. You were at the Harvey Milk LGBT Democratic Club and couldn't name any LGBT advisors to your campaign. You were at the debate last week and couldn't name any drag queens on your own. I was wondering if you could, this is an opportunity to redeem yourself. And if you could name 3 LGBTQ advisors for your campaign and 3 drag queens in San Francisco.
So we're not gonna revise the drag queen question from last week. But what I will say is I'm incredibly proud of the support that I have from our LGBTQ plus community here in the San Francisco. Thank you. I have a former member of the Board of Supervisors, Jeff Sheehy, who is a close friend and a supporter of my campaign. I have a member of my staff, 2 members of my staff from the queer community here in the city of San Francisco that I won't dignify this question by actually naming exactly who they are. But what I will do is stand by my record in supporting our queer community here in the city of San Francisco. When I was a member of the Board of Supervisors as a straight white male, I was the one who authored legislation to make sure that same-sex couples that work for the city of San Francisco, they were being taxed by our federal government for their healthcare benefits before same-sex marriage was legalized. I was the one who authored the legislation to make sure the city of San Francisco reimbursed those same-sex couples so they are treated equally in the eyes of San Francisco residents, equally in the eyes of San Francisco City Hall. I will stand by my record of that, and I look forward to the continued support from our queer community throughout the city of San Francisco. Thank you for that question.
Thank you. Question? The last question, Mr. Lurie, your turn.
I give you a softball, Mayor. 3 nonprofits that you have cut because they weren't performing well.
I feel bad about it. I feel bad. I don't know if, I don't want to throw some of these organizations
You'll have
under the
to have
bus.
it, no names.
I will just say, sadly, one of the organizations was involved in some issues in the Bayview Hunters Point community. Another one tragically had done some inappropriate things with a family shelter. And then unfortunately, there was one program that didn't necessarily spend money appropriately to provide the appropriate tutor programs. It's more than 3, but you know, I don't want to do that to these organizations. And let me just, matter of fact, let me just say, since I got like 90 seconds, you know, we have a lot of nonprofit organizations doing a lot of important work. And sadly, some of them had made some tremendous mistakes. It wasn't as easy just to walk away from an organization that was responsible, for example, one of our family shelters. They had staff that was responsible for overseeing this project, but they did some things inappropriately so. And we had to make some adjustments with another nonprofit that was in good standing to make a transition. It's not as simple as you can stop something from happening and throw these people under the bus. They have employees, there's work that needs to be done in those transitions, and there's more than 3 that we've had to cut funding for. And in fact, right now, many of them are very upset and they're going to the budget hearings to protest to get their money back. But you know, I can probably provide you a list of examples. I just don't want to do it right here today.
Thank you, Mayor. That will end that portion. We are now going to do closing statements. Each candidate has 60 seconds, and they drew numbers as far as their order. Mr. Peskin, you are starting.
I am running for San Francisco because I want San Francisco to be a city for everyone, not just the wealthy. I'm running for San Francisco because I have the experience and the know-how to get the job done. I am honored to have contributions from over 1,000 San Franciscans, teachers, nurses, working San Franciscans. And those are the exact people that I will fight for. I've been endorsed by the San Francisco teachers, healthcare workers, Teamsters, San Francisco Rising Action Fund, the San Francisco Tenants Union, and the League of Pissed Off Voters. I do not have any billionaires on my side, but I have you, and that's exactly who I will fight for. I'm putting progress on the ballot, and I want to earn your vote in November.
Mr. Safaí, you are next.
Thank you. Let me just say, as your mayor, I will never make excuses. I will have bold leadership. I have dedicated the last 24 years of my career to fighting for working families, standing up every single day. And I have the most diverse set of experiences on this stage. I'm an immigrant. I've run my own small business. I've worked for 2 mayors. I've been an advocate and strong member of the labor movement. I've worked under Mayor Willie Brown, Mayor Gavin Newsom. I was a deputy department head. I worked for Public Works. I was organized labor of activists on the ground, organizing for folks. And I've been on the board for the last 7.5 years, 3 years on the budget committee, 1 year as the president of the retirement fund. I come to this job ready on day one. This is not an entry-level job. You have to be ready to take the reins and get going on day one. And I will fight like hell every single day for working families, 911 call operators, firefighters, nurses,
Thank you
teachers,
very much.
working families. I hope you'll join me. I want to be your next mayor of San Francisco. Thank you.
Mr. Farrell, you are next.
Thank you. I'm running for mayor of San Francisco because I believe in our city. I believe we have everything going for us in San Francisco. We have the natural beauty around us. I mean, a today like today, how can you not fall in love with San Francisco? We have our parks, we have our educational institutions, but more than anything, we have the people of San Francisco. I'm lucky enough to be born and raised here. Lucky enough to be a born and raised Democrat in San Francisco. Our spirit and our ethos here in the city of San Francisco is unique and iconic around the world. But City Hall has lost its way. I'm running for mayor because I want to bring my experience inside and outside of City Hall, my competence and my strong vision for the city of San Francisco, because I want to make sure we take San Francisco back. I would be honored to have your support, and together we will reclaim our mantle as the most iconic city in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mayor Breed.
I have led this city during unprecedented crises, and I have met these challenges head on. We are seeing change every single day. Businesses are coming back. Crime is lower than it's been in 10 years. And we have seen a significant reduction in homelessness on our streets. I know that we have more work to do. And in the next 4 years, we will continue to reimagine our downtown by bringing 30,000 new residents and students by 2030. We will build housing in every neighborhood. We will support our small businesses. We will make transit safer, and we will continue to arrest drug dealers and make our streets safer. The choice is clear. Do we want to go backwards? Do we want to continue to talk mess about our city or throw our city under the bus? Or do we want to move forward and be hopeful and optimistic about the future? That is the question. And I'm proud to serve as your mayor, and I hope to have your support as we move forward.
Thank you, Mayor. And Mr. Lurie to close it up.
San Francisco, we are coming back. But the question is what does that comeback look like? How long does it take? We can return to the same politicians who have built up this broken system and then take their blame to it for all of their failures. Or we can choose a better future, rooted in accountable leadership, new ideas, and the end through the politics of demonizing each other on every single turn. I'm not naive. Challenging the status quo is never easy, but that's what it's going to take to create a safe and clean, a thriving and affordable city once again. But here's the thing. I'm so confident that we can do it because I've spent my career doing just that. Thank you all for believing in San Francisco.
And thank you very much to the candidates. That wraps up our debate for tonight.